and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hi, I'm Helen Leathers, and with me today is my business partner and co-host, Tom Dillon. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Good.
I am feeling as though I have arrived. I've done some breathing before I came into the room. I'm in a very zen place as I join you this morning.
Excellent. Are you saying that you're present?
I am present.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's what we're going to be talking about today.
Is it?
Yeah. I'm going to get my own back. Would you like to ask me how I am today?
How are you, Helen?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I'm very present.
I ever said on the podcast that someone once asked me at Tango how I was. I don't know how old the lady was, but she seemed very old, maybe in her 80s. But anyway, she asked me how I was, and I said, yeah, I'm good. And she said, oh, such an Americanism, isn't it? I said, what? And she said, I'm good. Oh. I said, is it?
Oh.
So, yeah. I don't tend to use it an awful lot these days, probably because she said that. But I don't know whether it is an Americanism or not.
I don't know.
She seemed to know what she was talking about. But anyway, I digress.
You digress.
Back to presence.
Yes.
It's one of those distractions that takes us away from being present.
It does.
Our mind wanders. Our mind goes to other things.
We will talk about that.
Will we?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, about a year ago, in episode 107, we introduced the topic of coaching presence. And I thought it was a good time to revisit and do a part 2.
Good.
And on the back of discussing this and presenting on this at our annual conference. So I just thought I would bring a little bit more moving into presence, what it is, and how we can work on our coaching presence. So, what do you think coaching presence is, Tom?
Well, I think it's about that devoted listening about your focus being fully on the person in front of you and not being distracted by anything outside of that, and also not being distracted by your own thoughts. So a little bit like you just said, I'm good. My mind went to this woman back at Tango
years ago.
Such an Americanism. So that, we do have that ability in the way that, because we think at lightning speed and someone is talking to us quite slowly, I think there is that possibility of not being fully present. So I think if we are really focused on the person in front of us and taking in everything in front of us, not just what they're saying, but the way they're saying it, tone of voice, their body language, their gestures, their expressions, if we're really focused on them and what's going on for them, then I think that to me is presence.
Lovely.
What is it for you, Helen? Well,
before I say what it is for me, I thought I might share a couple of definitions that I found elsewhere. I've got one it was actually a sort of a research paper around coaching presence by Geller and Greenberg in 2002, so quite a while ago, talked about coaching presence involving bringing the whole self into the encounter with the client, being completely in the moment on a multiplicity of levels, physically, emotionally, cognitively, and spiritually. Which is not dissimilar to what you've just said about me.
Yeah, although I think my focus was very much on the person in front of me rather than on me, really. And what it means for me to be present and whether I'm bringing my whole self. I'm not conscious of not bringing my whole self. I don't think I turn up as someone else. But, in a very real... Yeah. I think it's possible to do that. I think if you're coaching within organizations or you're slightly unnerved by the person in front of you, you want to impress them, you might show up in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's not helpful.
So an authentically you showing up, being present for that person in front of you. The ICF talk about it being fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, grounded and confident.
Yeah, wouldn't disagree with that. One thing I would say about that presence that I have whilst I do bring my whole self, it's a different self in the coaching room to how it is in real life. So I'm an extrovert and I tend to generally in conversation have more than my fair share of things to say. And normal cut and thrust of conversation I'm quite comfortable with. So if someone talks over me, then I'll just pick up the conversation. I show up differently in the coaching room. I have a coaching presence that is not me in real life.
Yeah. I'm the same.
Yeah. So I think that's something to recognize, that as we evolve as coaches, that presence does emerge in a way that it's not really there at the beginning.
Yes. And we see that with our coaching trainees, that change and shift over 6 months.
I think I talked about this about someone when we talked about intuition on a course that was on at the end of the course. I think the tutor was asking us what kind of coaches we were, and this lady said, I think I'm an intuitive coach, but I think I always have been. And I was like, no, you weren't at the beginning. You were asking lots of closed questions. You were interrupting people. You were like, that has emerged over the year.
And it's funny how people don't always see their progression.
I was a lovely lady, and she had, but you could see the improvement in her.
Yeah.
She'd learned to coach.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that does, if you just arrived bringing your whole self to a coaching room without any coaching training, it wouldn't work. No,
you have to develop and be aligned with your coaching presence, your coaching persona, I think. I hear people talking about presence using words like it's a connection, it's a way of being in that space, which is a very succinct definition. It doesn't give us much more information, but it's a succinct one. Some people talk about holding space, creating a container. The one I like, and I've kind of taken a few concepts and melded them together, is being authentically aligned and congruent and fully conscious, present and emotionally regulated to create a safe, trusting and collaborative space where your coachee feels held and heard. Which is quite lengthy. Yeah. But if you get all of those right, I think that's where magic can happen.
It did include the word present, which in defining presence is...
but present and presence, I think, be slightly different.
Say more about that.
I think you can be present in the room and not have full presence.
Okay.
Because you can be distracted by things and you can be physically there, but mentally elsewhere, distracted by thoughts or what's going on. So I think it's okay to have the word present in a definition of presence.
All right.
That's just my opinion. Anyway, it's the one I like.
So thinking about that, obviously we're just one side of this, and I'm interested by that connection point that you made in a different definition, because I think there is something about the connection, and in Gestalt they talk about the I-thou relationship.
Yeah.
Something that exists in the space between the two of you that isn't you and me, it's we in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think when that happens, that's quite magical.
Yes.
But I don't think it's always there. And obviously what you're talking about in terms of being present is you as the coach being present and creating that space, that container. But that doesn't mean the person in front of us is going to be present and feeling that in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that when Maria Riley Wood came to speak at one of our online conferences, she talked about the fact that, and she's written a book on coaching presence and has often spoken about it. When we are in presence as the coach, it makes it easier for the coachee to fall into presence. When we're listening and modelling that presence, they can fall into presence. And when there's that connection between the two of you, it's certainly when you're both in that space, I think that's where real magic happens. Absolutely.
I think sometimes it can be a little bit unnerving for coaches to have someone that is fully present and devotedly listening.
Yeah.
Especially if they're really not too sure where they're going to go with what they brought to the table. Because then they can feel a pressure to almost perform and work through whatever it is, because we're not giving them the answers.
Yeah, maybe.
So, yeah.
I think for people listening to this, thinking that I want to develop my presence, it is something that comes up in both the Association for Coaching and the ICF core competencies about managing presence. I don't think you're going to flick a switch and suddenly be present.
No,
It
but
takes
you would
time.
hope. And I certainly think an awful lot of our doctors have it already when they come because they're used to talking to patients. So that they will know how to engage in a way, hopefully, that means that they are present.
Yeah.
I think what I've noticed in terms of having consultations with some doctors, they're not present at all. They're on their screen and they're kind of looking at. So I had one consultation with the GP probably a year ago now, where he'd never actually looked at me once. Like he came and fetched me from the waiting room, got me to sit down in his consultation room. No eye contact at all. I think I was there for 12 minutes. I overran slightly, but so 12 minutes, nothing. No real sense that he was with me. And, I fully understand the pressures that doctors are under and that the need to move quickly. And he had things to look at on the screen and, but there is time and space for doctors to be fully present with someone for a couple of minutes at least and just hold that space for the person in front of them. And I think so in terms of what we teach on our course and building that presence, I think that is such an invaluable way of being to learn that doctors can take out into the real world and just use with everyday conversations with patients and with colleagues. And it's such a useful way of being with people that just changes everything, I think.
Yeah. And I think what you've said there points to the reality that when there is no presence, we notice it. And equally, when we have that sense of presence, we may not notice it in the moment, but afterwards we're going to go, that was amazing. That I felt heard. I felt that was a really special place to be in.
Yeah.
To have that conversation. And I think that that's why it's so important that it feels like you're not just being rushed through a process. It reduces that stress of, I've got to say the right thing or do the right thing. I can really think about my answers. We can build rapport, build trust, build that psychological safety for our coachees by having that presence in the coaching space. And I think it keeps us out of the stuff, the detail. And for us as coaches as well, keeps us a little bit detached in some way. We can almost observe from a distance whilst being really there for them. It's a strange dichotomy that, but I think that they're some of the benefits of it.
Yeah, so it's sort of related to it, and I'll talk about how it fits in. So someone said recently on their kind of assessment of their own performance in the coaching room that they had a tendency to look away whilst they were thinking and maybe speaking. They weren't fully engaged on the coachee whilst they were doing the talking. And I think that's quite normal. And I will look up to the left when I'm thinking. So as a coach, I will do that. Not whilst they're talking. Obviously, I tend to make eye contact while someone's talking with me. But when I'm thinking and going, I'll look up to the left and then come back as I start to speak about it. And so this student was saying, I'm not sure that allows for the full kind of connection and presence when I look away. But I think if you were never to look away, that would be slightly unnerving for the person in front of you.
And
feel like they're being stared at.
And really hard to control because it's a very natural thing, isn't it?
But I'm not sure that I would want to control it.
No, that's what I mean. I don't think you could if you even wanted to.
Yeah, but it just made me think, is that... I do that and I justify why I do it. But does it break that rapport that you have with the coachee when you look away? But I figure whilst I'm doing, because the coachee does it when they're talking.
Yes.
When they're thinking and talking, they will probably not be looking at you.
Yeah.
And I think that's something else to sort of clarify, that even though they're not looking at you, that they're looking away, that you still have to be there with them, ready for when they come back to you.
Yeah.
So that they know that connection is still there.
Just because they're looking away thinking doesn't mean you can get your phone out.
No.
You still have to be present and listen.
I did observe someone not on our course, years ago, on a university course where a lady closed her eyes to think about something and the coach just started looking around the room.
Okay.
And afterwards I kind of fed back and I said, it's really strange when the lady, I noticed that you were looking around the room while she had her eyes closed. What was going on there? And she said, well, I didn't want her to feel like I was staring at her. I said, well, firstly, she wouldn't have known you were staring because she had her eyes closed. But actually, when she opened her eyes, you weren't looking at her. You were looking somewhere else, which would perhaps suggest you were a bit distracted. So I think for us to be focused, have that devoted listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got 3 questions that I want to bring to our listeners. To contemplate presence. And I just think they're quite useful to reflect on. Now, they might sound a little bit negative.
Oh dear.
Because I think sometimes it's important to think about how you're not doing something rather than how you're doing it, if this makes sense. So what prevents you from being in presence?
Would you like me to answer?
Well, if you feel the desire to answer, what prevents you from being truly present?
I guess just that ability to think faster than someone is speaking. So I think you can get ahead of the game and think, I know where this is going. I've got an answer for this.
Right, yeah.
Not that I would give them the answer, but I do, I think we all, maybe some judgment about the situation as well, that you will go to that place of judgment and have to park that. But I think that can take us away from presence. Obviously, distractions in the room could take away being conscious of time.
Yeah.
I tend to have a clock visible somewhere for me in the room so I don't overrun, but that could be a distraction, particularly towards the end of a session, that stops me being present. I think maybe, and we talk about this with our students, don't we, that thinking of what comes next. I don't tend to think of the next question. I just wait until I've played back and then think of the next question. But definitely wondering where it's going to go.
Yes.
Something. Well, I have no idea where we're going to take this now.
And with this question, not just in the coaching space, but if we think about just before, I think if we rush into a coaching session, if we have been somewhere else and we haven't transitioned into coach mode, I think that can prevent us from getting into that presence. Yeah,
although I do find that I can do that quite quickly. I don't think I have any real problem with that anymore. I think I can make the switch.
But it takes practice, doesn't it?
Yeah, and normally within a coaching session, there is a little bit of rapport building before you start coaching.
Yeah.
So there will be a, how are you, how you been, which can sometimes morph into the coaching session without you noticing the transition. But I think there's generally that small talk before we get going. So that tends to ease me into being with them and being fully present with them. Because that's how I would listen. I would tend to, in normal life, make eye contact and be interested in the person that I'm talking to.
And obviously you've been coaching a long time, so to be able to switch into coach mode quite quickly, you've been practiced at that. So for people who are listening who perhaps are newer to coaching, how can you transition into coach mode would be a good question, I think, to pose.
And I guess for a lot of people, if they've got stressful lives and they've got things going on, something's just happened with one of their children or something, and then they're suddenly in a coaching room and they're still worrying about that, it's very difficult to switch that off completely.
Yeah.
And we do need to park it, but there's nothing we can do about it whilst we're coaching. So that, I will deal with that later, but that is potentially something that's going to get in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second question is, once you're in that coaching space, and I think there'll be some overlap with the first question, and let's say you're being very present, what might pull you out of presence, mid-presence?
Obviously a distraction. So I won't have my phone on so that nothing on my side is particularly going to distract me. But it could be that they talk about something that takes you to a place that you're remembering something in your own life, and again, we have that ability to think really fast, and we make connections, and that's how we stay alive, isn't it? We make connections, make things work. So I think it's very easy to go to a place of, I'm reminiscing about something else.
Oh, yes, matching something that someone said, something you've had.
Yeah.
Oh,
same for me. That sort of having that thought, not saying it out loud, but having the thought of, I remember when this happened, which again would be normal conversation and normal thought processes, but it's not helpful in the coaching room.
It could even be really practical things that when you sort of arrived and you've started your coaching session, you're not sitting in a comfortable position, and halfway through you're suddenly like, actually, my body's aching here. I need to reposition myself. Checking the time you've mentioned as well, and that idea of wanting to solve the problem, wanting to jump in with advice you've mentioned there.
Yeah, or feeling the expectation that you are going to solve it, so that they might come and start talking about something. Well, I need to sort this out, and I don't know the answer, so I'm hoping you're going to help, and almost giving you the problem. And it's that resisting the urge to. But I think when someone does that, when they start talking in a way that suggests that they think you're going to have the answer for them, I think that can be a distraction, because you think, God, now they're expecting me to. We've talked about this in contracting. They know I'm not going to give them the answer, but now they're asking me, So I think, that.
So those thoughts and anxieties around, absolutely. So the other question, and I don't know if you want to answer this, but it's one to pose for our listeners, is how do you notice that your presence has slipped? And I think it's a really great reflective question. And to notice in upcoming coaching sessions, how do you notice? Is there a change to your demeanour, your posture? Do you lean back, lean in?
Yeah, I'm not conscious of physical stuff. I guess and it's that sort of metacognition, isn't it? It's thinking about your thinking. And it's not until you stop and realise that you're doing it that you can then go, okay, park that, stop that.
Yeah.
And you do have to check in with yourself. But the minute you start thinking about something else, you're not really listening.
Or the minute you start thinking about the fact that you're in presence, you're not going to be in presence. No. So that's tricky. So
I think it's difficult to define when you realise that you're not. Other than go, okay, now I'm distracted now.
Yeah,
I've gone. I've seen it. My supervisor Bob. There's times when I've seen him glaze over. He's just not there anymore. It doesn't happen very often, but I can think of one particular session in his office where he'd gone. And I kind of had to wait.
Wait till it come back to you. So I think those three questions, what I'm going to do, I've got some other reflective questions, journaling prompts I'm going to share in the show notes for people to start to think about their presence. I think sometimes when you notice that distraction in the coaching space, we need something to bring ourselves back into presence. And it might be, I'm just going to look at this person straight in the eyes and re-engage with listening. But grounding yourself back in your body can be useful if you've been distracted by your mind. So taking your awareness to your breath, taking your awareness to your chair, where you're sitting, that contact feeling, your senses can be really useful to bring you back into presence. So I just thought I might share some things that listeners might want to work on. Some of these they might think, no, I'm not going to do that. But, I'm not saying you have to do every single one, but they can be useful. So first thing, staying authentic. I think as an authentic, aligned coach, knowing your values, knowing why you are in the coaching space and what you're offering is really useful. Making sure you're nice and grounded in that space, really, really physically present so that you've arrived. So a mindfulness practice might be useful for some people. Some sort of ritual or transition into coaching and out of coaching. So we move into presence and out of presence. Stress management techniques are useful. And also reflection. Supervision, I think, is a great tool as well, to be able to sit down and talk to someone about what's going on for you in the coaching space and have that time to reflect on that. And working on yourself as well. Really connecting with not just while you're in the coaching space, but working on the things that perhaps make you distracted, that trigger your thoughts. I was saying that I was on a course, and it's not a coaching space, but I was listening on the course and taking some information in, and then they gave some information that I knew to be factually incorrect. It totally threw me out of my learning presence. So knowing what things can trigger us, whether it's a reminder, you've mentioned, oh, that takes me back to this, or a situation we've also been in where perhaps we resonate with the coachee can trip us up. So we might want to do some work on ourselves around that, perhaps have some coaching.
Hey.
So yes, I'm going to share some journal prompts to get people just thinking about how their coaching presence is, what supports and nourishes it, how they want it to be, what's getting in the way for them at the moment. But I think the big thing, all of those things matter, but one big thing is, for what reason do you coach? And I think if we can really tap into that meaning, that purpose behind our being a coach, why we are there for the person in front of us, that I think creates that connection that we spoke of right at the beginning, and gives us a real sense of being there for them in that moment. And I think that can really help us to reconnect with presence and fall into it more readily. So they were just some thoughts that I had on it.
Wonderful.
I thought I'd share today.
Thank you very much.
Being aware of yourself, I think, is a really good starting point. How do I feel? How am I?
Yeah. Excellent. So I think everyone will find that really useful. And so you're going to include those in the show notes.
Yes.
So wonderful. Well, I'm feeling very present now.
Good. It's a different energy when we talk about presence, isn't there? Also, almost automatically. So thank you for that. And
Thank you.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time on the podcast, we will be talking about ADHD in coaching.
Okay, interesting.
I know this is a topic that you get slightly anxious about talking about for fear of offending people, but I shall do my best to hold the space in a respectful way.
Excellent. Good. Look forward to it. I shall
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.